and welcome. Thank you for joining me today on the Take Away with Tyra. As you may know, if you have been following me, I have one guest and I ask them one question. Hence the takeaway. It's short and sweet, and it's something we can take away, something they share with us from the question that I asked them. So if this is the first time you have been joining me, please feel free to subscribe. I enjoy your interaction, and also you're free to share this to help other people understand things about ONPASSIVE. So here we are today with Susie McCrea. So good to see you, Susie.
Yes, you too. Thank you for inviting me.
I'm glad to have you today on The Takeaway. And anyone that is watching, if you've not seen this before, I do one guest, one question, and they have the mic for 5, 10, maybe if they push it, they'll get 15, but not usually. So anyway, we're going to get started here. So Susie, we've talked about this before, and I was really thinking of a question for you. And I would like to hear your opinion about family legacy. So take the mic, Susie.
Okay, well, the pressure's on. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much for asking me to give my opinion on this. And
Mhm.
I think people have all different interpretations about family legacy. And a lot of times it's tied to wealth.
Yeah.
Because they're thinking of their legacy, and a lot of times it comes down to, is there a trust fund, is there charities and things like that, and I'll talk more about that. But what I started thinking about when this question came up was, what is my family legacy? And maybe the questions you can ask yourself: what's your family legacy?
Right.
Some may be similar, some may be very different. So when I think about a family legacy, I think about what values were instilled in me throughout my life, and maybe in my parents, my grandparents, my great parents, my great great parents, and what would I like to see passed down through the generations in the McCrea family.
Right.
And so I started thinking about what are the values that are important to the McCrea family, which may be important to many, many families out there. And I have to really go back to telling everyone a quick story about my upbringing and my dad. So we lived on the grounds of the Belchertown State School, which was a state hospital for, back then they called them mentally retarded. Okay.
Okay.
And my dad was the head farmer at the state school. And we moved there when I was born in 1961. And we grew up there. And my dad ran the farm. And the farm included cows, chickens, working horses. And some of we call back then, they were patients of the state school. Then they were called clients. But back then they were patients. And a lot of them were not mentally retarded. Some of them had some deficiencies, but what my dad did was he took a lot of the men under his wing, and they worked the farm with my dad. And they milked the cows, they took care of the chickens, and they provided the eggs and the milk for that institution and other institutions around the state. There were also severely handicapped people there in the infirmary. There were also young children, older people. This is what I grew up with for the first 15 years of my life. I was exposed to all of this. We lived on the grounds. But my dad would welcome anyone into our home, no matter if they were a patient there, if they were an employee there. And I guess one of the defining moments in my life that really solidified our family legacy was my dad brought a young woman in a hospital bed and wheeled her from the infirmary to our yard. And she had, I think it's called hydrophysalis, it's water on the brain.
Right.
So
Yes.
her head was about this big and her body was extremely small. And
Mhm.
her name was Kathy. And my father wheeled her up to me and he had a ball to play with. And he said, Susie, this is my princess, Kathy, and she's here to play with you.
Aw.
So I was 10 years old and I stood there like, oh my God, what is going on? I mean, I could see the veins in her head
Mhm.
and I saw this person that didn't look really like a person to me, but my dad made her feel so comfortable and me feel so comfortable. And the girl, Kathy, looked at me. She goes, "Hi, Susie." You know, she could speak. She just was inflicted by this. So
Right.
we tossed the ball back and forth.
Aw.
And then my dad brought her back, you know, it was probably a quarter of a mile away, back to the infirmary. I mean, there's so many things he did like that, um, that I would like to think that our family legacy has always been welcoming and people into our home and making people feel comfortable no matter what is going on in their life. I mean, there are 7 kids in our family, and my mom and dad always had an open door. We had people who stayed with us that maybe had abusive parents. We had cousins who stayed with us whose parents were going through a divorce. We had people stop by that just needed a meal, and they were always welcome, and no one ever felt uncomfortable in our house. So, part of what I would like to see in our family legacy is kind of continuing that path, that we are here to um, help help others in the community, the underserved, and especially I think what our family focus is going to be with our family legacy is helping caretakers,
Right.
whether it's with the elderly or it's with the underserved or with those either that have special needs or back then it was mentally retarded, that's kind of near and dear to our heart. So when I joined on passive and Ash, our CEO, Ash Mafara, started speaking about, you know, yes, you're going to do well with on passive, you're going to gain wealth, but then after you fill your tank, what are you going to do? So our family has decided that we want a family legacy that focuses on the things I've talked about, the values that have been brought down, you know, through the generations, not just my dad, but his family, my mother's family, where they took people in and we cared for each other. And that doesn't always happen in these times. So the value is to value the values I was taught is to embrace everyone, welcome them, no matter what's going on in their life. Just take them in and to love them and to support them. So, what I see on passive doing to help us is that we can now take the core values of the McCrea family legacy and create a foundation where we start giving back financially, supportively to caretakers, to the underserved who need a place to feel comfortable in the world. And we don't have all the pieces of the puzzle put together yet,
Yeah.
but we are working on it. And that's what I love about ONPASSIVE, is that it can bring out something that we all in our family are passionate about, and then bringing it to fruition very, very soon, where we're going to give back, hopefully, obviously financially, but obviously create a movement where other people come in and they give their time as well. Because it's not just about wealth or money, it's also about time and just, giving back to the communities that you live in. So that's kind of our McCrea story. That's near and dear to our heart. And like I said, I have so many stories of people visiting our house. There were so many patients at the state school that really had so much to offer society, and they kind of got lost in the shuffle. But my dad was instrumental in knowing who they were and bringing them into our home, welcoming them. And it was just our way of being. And that defining moment with that young woman has stuck with me, where my dad made her feel like there was nothing wrong with her. And he made me feel like there was nothing wrong with her. It was just two 10-year-old girls throwing a ball back and forth. And it has just stuck with me forever. So that, Tyra, is what I'd like to see the McCrea family legacy do, is to continue the work that my dad started with our family.
Wow. Oh, wow. That is just beautiful. My goodness, folks, you're listening to this. Here is a great takeaway indeed. I mean, you have to look like what Susie was saying. What is your family legacy? And it isn't, it's not always just wealth. Yes, there's things to do with that. But oh my goodness, what a story. This is happening more and more as I'm doing the takeaway and hearing people's different takes on the questions, and just really moving answers that you guys are giving me. So Susie, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you have a family trivia going on. So
Yeah, well,
I'm not.
I was telling Tyra before that there's seven of us in the family, and 7 o'clock every night we have a quick family trivia. And actually, Tyra helped me win tonight with the answer. But yes, well, thank you for having me, and I hope that what I had to convey to everyone gets everyone's brain start going, like, what are the things you want to see passed down through generation? What are your values? What are your commitments? What are you looking for to help change the world? What do you want your children, your grandchildren, your great grandchildren? And then ONPASSIVE is going to help us finance those passions and give back in a way that people don't even realize. I mean, what an opportunity.
Wow. Indeed. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. Go and have fun with your family. We'll talk again sometime.
Okay, thanks, Tyra.